morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the very new SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2. Now, before we get into the 5X Gen 2, while you're already here, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and it does help us out quite a bit. And go ahead and comment your favorite budget red dot in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure on the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2 is that I paid full retail price for it. I bought it for $150, $160 from Cabela's, but there's not a lot online about the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2. And in fact, the only reason I know about it is because Hop sent me a picture of it, asking if I had taken a look at it, and within a couple minutes and a few clicks, well, I bought one for myself to see what it was all about. Now, if you're not familiar with the Romeo 5 lineup, you have the Romeo 5, which is actually sitting on a 193 riser right here, hiding from you. But that one there is the basic model. You can find those for around $100 on sale. It is the Aimpoint T1, T2 style, 20mm objective, very standard, very basic in the red dot game, but it has all of the features that you want. Now, the old Romeo 5X, similar to this, has a integrated battery into the mount, but it has a separate piece on the bottom, much like a Aimpoint Comp M5, I want to say, versus this Gen 2 5X, which has a one-piece aluminum body, which we'll get into in just a minute. The 5 XDR is the exact same thing, but with a multi-reticle option, so the 2 MOA dot and 65 MOA outer circle. And then of course you have the Romeo 7 series, the 8 series, and the 4 series, all which have different features and do different things. Now, getting into exactly what is the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2, this is a one-piece aluminum body, which I believe is 6061 T6, which is perfectly fine for these micro T1, T2 style of optics, even though this one here does not have any sort of mount compatibility, because again, it is a one-piece body. Now, in terms of size and weight, it's very standard for the genre, a little bit over 4 inches long, and the weight, with of course the included mount and battery, comes in at 6.1 ounces. Now, a couple advantages of having the battery tray built into the body itself is that it doesn't have to be hanging off the side or the top, because of course it's in the middle, so it's not going to occlude any of your peripheral vision and gives you a slimmer, nicer looking package. One of the downsides of having a one-piece body, battery tray, and all of that is that you don't have any sort of adjustability with aftermarket mounts, riser plates, or anything like that. And unfortunately, the Romeo 5X Gen 2 only comes in at a absolute co-witness of 1.41, which is pretty low. Most people prefer their optics a little bit higher to have a more natural head position, and this only comes in the lower position. So if you do want to raise it up, you're going to need a riser like the Unity riser or like the UTG 13 slot riser that I use on a lot of my guns. Now, the way they have redesigned the mount from the previous version, this is of course integrated. On the bottom, we have two dedicated recoil lugs, as well as a squared off crossbolt that will act like a third recoil lug, and the crossbolt itself is quite substantial and ends in a 1/2 inch hex and a very large locking block, clamping surface, whatever you want to call it, to give you a very large amount of contact between the mount and your rail. On top of that, you can go all the way up to 65 inch-pounds on the 1/2 inch hex, which is what I did. With a really good amount of surface area contact between the mount and the upper receiver or whatever you happen to be mounting it to, in theory, this is going to allow it to hold zero very well. Now, in terms of features of the 5X Gen 2, it has your standard feature set for a Romeo 5-ish red dot. You have 10 daylight settings, 2 night vision settings. This being the 5X means that it only comes in a 2 MOA red dot, which for me is perfectly fine. On top, we have 2 rubberized buttons, one for minus, one for plus, that do plus and minus things. Now, the turrets are exposed, however they are protected and slightly recessed into the body of the optic. The clicks on this version are very tactile and audible. Surprisingly, they're some of the nicest, most precise turrets I've felt in a red dot, especially in this price range, even if it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Now, this is a 20mm window, 2 MOA red dot, as I mentioned. The refresh rate is very good. You again get 10 daylight settings, which is more than you need. At setting 10, it is extremely bright, brighter than, again, you'll ever need unless you're staring at the sun or in some sort of snow whiteout conditions where you need that maximum power. Now, because this is a SIG red dot, it also comes with their MOTAC, which is their motion activated illumination, meaning that after a couple minutes, it will automatically turn off, and then once it senses motion, it will automatically turn back on. Battery life with that AAA battery is rated at 50,000 hours at a medium setting, though again, when you combine that with auto on, auto off, you're going to be getting a battery life measured between 5 and 15 years, or however long that battery can actually hold a charge. Now, the battery tray itself is O-ring sealed with the cap that you can get pretty tight on, and the body itself is one piece, of course, and it does come with a IPX7 certification. Now, when it comes to actually using the 5X Gen 2, it is fortunately exactly what you would expect. The Tuamoy dot looks perfectly fine, it's crisp, it's concentric, it looks nice in a wide variety of lighting conditions, and of course there are enough brightness settings to get you where you want depending on how you want to use it. Now, the glass quality itself is perfectly fine, again, very good for daylight shooting, low light shooting, white light shooting. As far as passive aiming under night vision, I can't really comment about it, although if it is the standard Romeo 5 series glass quality and lens coatings and that sort of thing, then you're probably better off with a different optic, though again, for 150 bucks, you're probably not looking for that sort of performance anyways. So now, something that I've always liked about the Romeo red dots versus the Holosun red dots is that the Romeos have a much less obtrusive notch filter, so most red dots will have some sort of notch filter to provide contrast, to save some battery, and to provide clarity in different lighting conditions. There's a wide variety of uses for notch filters. However, on the Romeo series, they're much less obtrusive, so there's not very much color shift whatsoever. There is a tiny bit depending on your lighting conditions and how you're looking at it, but overall the glass quality looks good. And again, if you're used to using red dots, this is going to be nothing special, but again, it's going to be par for the course. Now, getting into the drop testing that I did on this optic, I unfortunately have to apologize because the ammunition that I was using was a wide variety of ammunition thrown into a bucket, so the group sizes were horrible, but it was anything from 55 grain Reman to 62 grain L2A1, so it was very difficult to tell what ammo was what, so I tried to get 5 of the same type. However, because it was all mixed in the same container, again, the groups are going to look pretty bad. So with a target set up at 50 yards, I did a 5-round control group, which again looked very bad for the PWS Mark 116 that this was attached to. After that, we did a shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks, did another 5-round group that of course looked bad, but fortunately was in the same general area, so no appreciable shift in zero. Then I went ahead and did another drop onto an AR500 steel plate. This is a absurdly harsh impact and will kill most optics out there. Now, the optic didn't die. These little 20mm red dots are incredibly durable just by design, especially with the good mount and integral body design. I don't see any problems from that aspect. However, after the second drop onto the AR500 steel plate, we did have a point of impact shift of about 12 inches down and to the right. Now, the optic is still fully functional, and I was able to re-zero it and take it out to about 400 yards. However, that point of impact shift I was a little bit surprised by. Now, the mount design on it is very good. You have a lot of contact between the upper receiver and the optic. It was torqued down to the recommended 65 inch-pounds, so I'm not sure if that point of impact shift was from the mount itself or from the internals of the optic actually shifting during the impact. So again, there was a point of impact shift after one of the harshest drops possible, and no point of impact shift or no appreciable point of impact shift after a shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm relatively happy with that, though I would have been ecstatic if for 150 bucks you could get a bomb-proof design that would hold zero through just about anything. Now, at the end of the day, the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2, which as I'm reading now is a Bass Pro Shop / Cabela's exclusive, is pretty good for the money, especially if you're looking for that integrated one-piece mount. However, the two downsides of the optic are the fact that it's not T1, T2 compatible. So for instance, you can't put this on a low mount and use it on something like an AK or just something with a lower comb height. And to get it higher, you're going to need to use a aftermarket riser, which is going to have a little bit of tolerance stacking on whatever you're putting it on. So if you're looking for something at that absolute 141 height, you really like the integral design, again, it's only 150, 160 bucks, which is on par with the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 1 non-exclusive model. But again, in that $150 plus price range, I think it performs as it should. Again, it's definitely nothing special for this price category, there's a lot of good options in the $100 to $200 price range for a budget red dot, and that's a good thing at this point. This is just another option, and again, if you really like that one-piece mountain body and the mounting design is again good, it might be something worth looking at. But that's really all I got on the SIG Romeo 5X Gen 2. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on the optic are in the comments down below. And with all that out of the way, guys, thank you once again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.